What are the best birth signs in Oblivion Remake, especially in Master Mode? So the main thing we are looking for are birth signs that either enhance or greatly boost a build or do something useful that's interesting that also can't easily be done in other ways. So let's just jump into it. All right, Apprentice, Fortify Magicka 100, Weakness to Magic 100. If you run it on a Breton, you have a 50% magic resist, so you really just have weakness to magic 50, which is definitely not nearly as bad of a debuff. However, if you run this on something like a high elf, you'll get insane starting magic with the downside of 25 weakness to all elements plus 100% weakness to magic. And I did that, and it's fine. The key is you don't get hit by spells. And how do you achieve that? You dodge the spells. It's like dodgeball. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a spell. So I do think it's S tier. On other classes, it can be good as well. For Master Mode, though, you do have to watch out for spells. You're basically taking like double damage, which is pretty crazy, especially considering how much damage things already deal to you. So you're going to want to stack like some kind of magic resist, spell reflect, spell absorb, anything like that. But it is definitely really good. The 100 magic is huge. It's a huge increase to magic pool, which is difficult to increase until you get to like level 20, and then you can start rolling those transcendent sigil stones. I think you need to be like level 24 to get like the magicka plus 50. So for quite a long time, like if you want to run enchantments or something, you're going to have to either pay for it or run like suboptimal sigil stones, which I don't really recommend doing, but you can do it. It's fine. There's a ton of Oblivion gates that generate in the game as long as you don't beat the game quickly. So you can always just farm Oblivion gates whenever for those. Atronach, I'm going to put an A tier. It could be, you could argue it's S tier. 150 more base magic, 50% spell absorb, no magicka regen. Now that doesn't prevent you from using potions with magicka regen or from using spell absorb, or I'm sorry, magicka absorb. You can also use Welkin stones. So there are ways to get around this. And if you want a big gimmick, try to hit 100 spell absorb and then conjure a weak thing like a flame Atronach, hit it 3 times with like your fists or whatever, just a weapon, doesn't matter, get it to attack you, and then just absorb the magic. Just run away from it and let it cast fireballs on you. That's an easy way to keep resetting your magic in between combat. So even though it's like, yes, you don't regenerate magicka, you kind of do. And if you get the 100% spell absorb, you could argue it's S tier. For most people, I don't know. I feel like most people aren't going to do that. They're probably just going to like run their class normally and not do too much min-maxing and all these like extra random things like that. But you could argue it's easily S tier. I'm just going to put it in A because of the downside. And if you don't want to play around that downside, it's pretty annoying. Regenerating magicka is nice because at any point in time, if you're out of radius of enemies, you can wait to regenerate your magicka. So one of the advantages of Apprentice is I can burn through all my mana, and as long as I just run away from where enemies are, especially in caves where the enemies are kind of split up anyways, you can just like wait to regen for free. So it's pretty nice. So losing that is a pretty huge tool, but also just regenerating it in combat. You do get 50% spell absorb, and the way it works is 50% of the time you absorb. It doesn't absorb 50% of the effect, so it's like a coin flip as to whether or not it happens, but if you get the spell absorb to 100, you will always absorb. And the other advantage of this is if you are running this on a race that has low magicka, and you don't even really plan on using magic, you basically can just give yourself spell absorb to be more tanky to magic, which is pretty nice actually. So it's pretty decent. It has some pros and cons, but it's pretty good. You could argue it's S tier, you could argue it's A tier. Next is the Lady, Fortify Willpower and Endurance. I think this is decent. I'll put it in B tier. I think a lot of the stat ones, because of how leveling works now, you can easily get +5s. So you can get 2 skills to +5 per level up, and then 1 skill to +2. You have 12 points to distribute. So the skills, the birth signs that improve starting stats, I feel like are less impactful than they used to be, because it used to be difficult to get the attribute level ups you want per level up in Oblivion. You'd have to like target specific skills, and it was like harder to level them, and you had to be like really precise with your build and the planning, and it was just like a huge like thing that you had to do. Nowadays it's like super easy. You level up, you get 12 12 points to distribute. You can pump skills up. If you hit level 25, you basically can max out most of your attributes. So this is only really good for early game, and then it falls off completely and becomes irrelevant. It just like ramps your leveling slightly. So I don't think it's D tier, but it's definitely not like anything that's overpowered or anything like that. Next we have the Lord. Shield 15 passive, resist magic 15. Great on tanks, great with heavy armor, great with Breton. I think this is low S tier. You could argue for late game it's not as good as having bonus Magicka, because Magicka is kind of like the resource that makes everything broken. And like you can always just cast Shield 15 or Shield 25 and magic resist to get like magic resist cap, or even just run like enchanted stuff. But it is really good on tanks, and it is really good for master mode. So like, you know, it's just nice. If you don't really plan on running too much magic and you want like tanking, this is like the thing for the Birthsigns. Next is, let's see, the Lord, the Lady, the Lover. All right, the Lover. Lover's Kiss. Greater power. Once per day to paralyze for 10 seconds. Costs 120 fatigue. It's bad. Why is it bad? Certain enemies can't be paralyzed, so it's not even universally useful. Also, it's once per day. Also, it costs 120 fatigue. The fatigue cost, it's not the worst thing ever, but the fact that you can't keep spamming it. If you could cast this for 120 fatigue and as like a lesser power that wasn't limited to once per day, maybe we're talking. But the fact that paralyze, like here's the other thing too. If you just cast a paralyze for like 1 or 2 seconds, that'll knock an enemy down and then they have to stand up. That's usually good enough. Like if you want to set up, you know, like some kind of spike or like some debuff thing, or just like to crowd control an enemy. Paralyze for 1 second, I would rather spam that, like cast it at, like infrequently as needed to shut down an enemy or enable or disable it. I'd rather do that than rely on like some big paralyze, because like what if you miss? Then it does nothing. So like these huge spells and huge abilities, if you miss with them, are painful. It just doesn't do anything that's like huge value compared to these other things that are always useful and always do something. This is just not that good. The next one is the Ritual. So Mara's Gift, 200 health heal, can be used once per day, and then you have force the undead to flee for 30 seconds, and that costs you 40 magicka. I think there's a level limit on that, and if I recall correctly, it's not even like 20 something. So if you're like level 25 and you go to like do a flee undead spell on something and they're level like 30 or whatever, or above the level of the effect, it will do nothing. So like that is kind of suspect, and the heal is fine, but it's not like anything to write home about. I would say it's a little bit better than the Lover, but it's still not very useful. Like it's just not really that good. And Flee Undead is like, it's one of those spells that's in the game, but I don't know why it's in the game. I've never used it. I don't know anyone who uses it. I don't know why you would use it. It doesn't kill enemies. It's only useful against specific enemies. And I don't know. I guess you could use it as crowd control against like zombies. I don't know. Are ghosts considered undead? I don't think so. I don't know if ghosts and liches are. If they are, then maybe that's kind of neat. But killing things is better than having them run away from you. The Serpent. Only a greater power, 3 points of damage for 20 seconds. So 60 damage, but it probably gets mitigated due to the damage scaling of Master Mode. So you're looking at way less than 60 damage. But also, it cures poison on you, which poison is relatively uncommon. For the most part. I mean, there are enemies that have poison weapons every now and then. Dispels 90 points. That can be useful if you have a debuff on you. Damage fatigue 100 points to caster, which that's you. You're the caster, so you lose 100 fatigue. I'm assuming that's what it means by that. If it damages the enemy's fatigue, that's neat, but it says to the caster, which is you, so you lose 100 fatigue for no reason. This is worse than like basic journeyman level poisons. It's bad. It doesn't even do that much damage. It's literally worse than poisons that also don't do that much damage. Now, you can ramp poisons to be decent in this game, but this is just such low damage, it's not even worth it. It's also limited to daily use. All right, next we have the Shadow. Moon Shadow, greater power. Grants invisibility for 60 seconds once a day. It's not very good. There's two invisibility effects, Chameleon and Invisibility. Chameleon is a constant effect that if you have it at 100%, you're basically invisible. And then Invisibility ends when you attack or interact with something. So this gives you the worst of the two effects once per day. And also the effect Invisibility is cheap to cast. So it's like, why? Who cares? Get rid of it. All right, next we have the Steed, which is just 20 more speed. Now, in the original build of Oblivion, it was difficult to level things like athletics. It was difficult to level in general. Getting attribute points was difficult unless you really knew what you were doing, and even then you'd have to like grind out doing specific things, setting up your build in such a way where you get the attribute point increases per level that you want, while also not leveling up too much, because if you level up too much, then you don't get those attribute point increases. Nowadays, now that we just get 12 attribute points, maxing out speed is super easy, but getting 20 speed is decent early on, but it's not as impactful as it used to be, because it used to take forever to level everything. So having 20 speed, you would notice this 20 speed difference for upwards of 20 hours of playtime, unless you did some kind of broken XP farm or something. So, and beyond that, most people didn't do that. But nowadays, it's just truly so easy to level that it's good for like early to middle game. But once you hit 100 speed, it doesn't do anything. It just got you to 100 speed, 4 level ups faster. That's all it does. That's literally all it does. It makes you faster earlier. Does that matter? Not really. The early enemies are pretty easy to kill, especially if you use Conjuration. Just summon like a basic mid-level, like, you know, Journeyman Conjuration spell and you're good to go. You don't have to run away from things. Doesn't really matter. The Thief. The Thief was also one of the ones that I felt like had a lot of use back in the day. Fortify Agility, Luck, and Speed, 10 points. So you get a speed increase movement-wise. Fortifying Agility, that ramps bow damage slightly, dagger damage, and short sword damage slightly. And I say slightly because primarily Blade and Marksman, or Bow or whatever, range, or up. Primarily those increase the damage, and then the Agility just gives you a little bit of ramp. Maybe like a few points, you know, from 0 to 100, but most characters start off at like 40 to 50 in Agility, so you're looking at maybe like a few, like 3 to 5 points of damage from going from 50 to 100 Agility. The Luck is weird because it gives you a hidden increase to all of your skills, but it does not do anything if those skills are at 100. So if you level up your skills to 100, Luck has no influence on them at all, and it only really affects skills that aren't at 100. So the Luck increase is kind of negligible long term. Early on, you might kind of notice like some mana costs being reduced, Mercantile being a bit better, little things like that. Slight buffs to like Athletics, which usually levels pretty slow. Same thing to Acrobatics. So it kind of helps you in a lot of ways. Basically gives you a slight indirect speed bonus through Luck ramping Athletics, because Athletics probably won't be hitting 100 unless you tape your key down, your W key down, and just start swimming for like 30 hours. That's what we used to do to level it. It was so dumb. But yeah, it's like, I'd say it's like here. It's about like Steed level. I'd say these are like tied. Next we have the Tower. So the Tower key, daily ability, greater power. One opens lock of average difficulty, can be used once per day. And then you also have Tower Warden, reflects 5% of all incoming damage for 120 seconds, can be used once per day. Now, I don't know that Tower Warden allows you to create the damage reflect spell. I don't know that you can get damage reflect spell if not for this. If this is the only way to get that as a custom spell, the Tower is interesting for that reason alone. If that is not the case, then this is terrible. Opening an average lock once per day, just level Alteration. It's just so much better. Just level. So let's put it in high D tier, and if the Tower Warden damage reflect is the only way to get that effect, assuming that it does allow you to custom craft that, and that's the only way, then it moves up to, I would say, like high B tier, possibly A tier. But if that is not the case, or if there's another way to get that spell effect, because there's reflect spell, then there's a reflect damage, and from what I understand, reflect damage is hard to get. I don't know how hard it is to get. I've never really looked into it. This game has a lot of rabbit holes you can deep dive into, and this is one I have not stuck my head in yet. So if you know more about reflect damage, definitely drop a comment. I'm curious to know. I'll probably look into it after this, but it seems like if it doesn't give you any unique thing, it's just bad. The warrior grit gives you fortify endurance and strength by 10. This is nice to help ramp you a little bit for like a warrior build, obviously. But don't let these things like fool you. Like don't get stuck in the thinking of, oh, I'm a warrior, I should use the warrior thing. It's like, no, like that's really just 4 level ups of +5s. That's really all it is. It's really not that big of a deal, honestly. So I'm putting this also in B tier. The endurance is nice for tanking. The strength is nice for carry weight and a little bit of damage. And by a little bit, I mean maybe like 1 to 2 points of more physical damage on your weapons. It's really not that much. And we're talking like going from like 10 to 11 damage. Because it's early game, right? So it's probably not going to do that much even, but you know, it'll help a little bit. Compared to the other things. All right, then finally we have the Mage, which is just straight up +50 magicka. I think this is arguably the best of these because it's unconditional. There's no downside. The big downside of Apprentice is if you're not on Breton, you just get spiked out. And the big downside of Atronach is if you can't manage the lack of mana regen, it just sucks. It really does. I've tried running this when I was younger, like when the game first came out, and I just hated it. So if you're used to Atronach and you like it, but another question you could ask yourself is 100 or is 50 extra magicka relative to Apprentice worth never being able to regenerate naturally? I don't think so. Or is 100 extra magicka worth being able to never regenerate naturally versus the Mage? I also don't think so. So I think because it has competitive things that also ramp starting magicka, the downside, like even if you, like, I don't really care about spell absorb that much because I usually don't even get hit by spells unless I messed up or I'm running like some like glass cannon build, which is what my first character was. And I do kind of regret that because if anything hits me, I die. But it kind of makes it more fun anyways. Now, can I cast a 100 magic resist spell on my main character? Absolutely. But will I? No, because that's not fun. But here's where I think the things are at, where the Birthsigns are at. Definitely feel free to drop a comment as to if you agree or disagree and why. And that's it for this one. Peace.